In the previous class, we have studied about other prominent kingdom, that is about the Chauhans, the Kalachuris, the Chandelas, the Gahdawalas and the Hindu Shahi. We have also seen the pattern of administration during this period. Village and town administration. The village served as the basic unit of administration. The headman and the accountant of the village, known as Gramapati, carried out administrative responsibilities. To assist him, there were village committees that looked after local schools, roads, water tanks, temples, etc. Such kind of committees also existed in towns. There were similar committees where the heads of trade guilds were associated with administration. Law and order issues in towns and neighboring areas were looked after by the Kotwal. Military organization. If we talk about the military organization, the armed forces had a crucial role to play in the expansion and maintenance of the empire. Apart from a strong infantry and cavalry, a large number of war elephants were also maintained. Here, infantry stands for those soldiers who are soldiers marching, and cavalry stands for soldiers who fought on horseback. According to the available literary sources, the Pala rulers maintained the largest number of elephants, while the Gujara Pratihara dynasty had the finest cavalry in the country. The Rashtrakuta rulers owned a large number of forts garrisoned by special troops. Means the Rashtrakuta rulers are having the large number of forts which are defended by the special armed forces. Social life. If we talk about the social life, the caste system was the basis of the social life during this period. The Brahmins, priests, and the Rajput Kshatriyas enjoyed the highest status in society, while the Vaishyas, traders, and merchants played a significant role in local administration. There was a decline in the position of women during this period. Sati and child marriage were practiced. Polygamy, which means the pattern of having more than one wife, was also common during this period. Economy. Agriculture was the major occupation of people. Trade relations with China, Southeast Asia, and the Western world flourished during this period. If we talk about the main items of export, it were spices, textiles, and precious stone, and the main import items comprised of horses, precious metals, and stones. Merchants operated through guilds are known as shrenis. The chiefs of the guilds, called Shrenistans, held important positions in the city administration during that period. The Kingdom of the South, the Cholas. The Cholas ruled in South India between 800 and 1200 CE. The founder of the empire was Vijayalaya, who was initially a feudatory of the Pallavas. Vijayalaya built the capital town of Thanjavur, a beautiful city of temples. The glory of the Chola dynasty is in large measure attributed to Raja Chola I and Rajendra Chola I. There are two famous kings of Chola Empire. One was Raja Chola I, who ruled in between 985 to 1014 CE, and second was Rajendra Chola I, who ruled in between 1014 to 44 CE. If we talk about Raja Chola I, he initiated the policy of war and conquest by defeating the Cheras and the Pandyas. He invaded Sri Lanka and annexed its northern part to his empire. His kingdom was organized on the lines of efficiency, both economic and military. One of his naval exploits was the conquest of the Maldive Islands. He also annexed the northwestern parts of the Ganga region in Karnataka and overran Vengi. Now coming to the Rajendra Chola I, he was the son of Raja Chola I, who continued his father's expansionist policies. He defeated the western Chalukyas and the Pala rulers of Bengal and completed the conquest of Sri Lanka. He marched across Kalinga to Bengal, crossing the Ganga and defeated the local ruler. To commemorate his victory, Rajendra I assumed the title of Gangai Chola, or the Chola conqueror of Ganga, and built a new capital near the river Kaveri called Gangaikonda Cholapuram, or the city of the Chola conqueror of the Ganga. Rajendra I also defeated the ruler of the Sri Vijaya Empire, which extended over the Malay Peninsula. Sumatra, Java, and the neighboring islands and controlled the overseas trade route with China. Srivijaya did not want the Indian merchants to trade with China. The Cholas led an expedition that resulted in the conquest of Kadaram or Kedah and the Malaya Peninsula and Sumatra. Thus, the Chola navy emerged as the strongest in the Bay of Bengal region. Chola administration. The Cholas had a highly organized structure headed by the king and a council of ministers to aid and advise him. In order to protect the country, the Cholas maintained a large army comprising cavalry, infantry, elephants, and a strong navy. The empire was divided into mandalams or provinces. Each province was further divided into Valandu or districts and Nadu or groups of villages. A large town was administered separately and called Atanur. At times, princes were appointed as the governors of provinces. Officials were usually paid by granting them assignments of revenue bearing lands. Chola administration, we are going to study about village administration, economy, temples, Chola inscriptions, and language and literature. Village administration. The Cholas had a well developed system of local self government. The Ur and the Sabha or Mahasabha were the two assemblies. Inscriptions tell us that the Ur was a general assembly of all classes of people who owned land within the village. In contrast, the Sabha was an assembly found in villages where Brahmins owned all the land as Brahmadeyar grants. As the Chola rulers granted land to a large number of Brahmins, a number of Brahmin settlements emerged in the Chola Empire. Parantaka's inscription, found inside the temple at Uttaramerur, describes the functioning of the Sabha. It operates through committees. It had different committees to look after various aspects of local administration, which includes temples, gardens, irrigations, assessment of land revenue, maintenance of law and order, etc. The Nagaram, as the name suggests, was an assembly found in towns and cities. Its members were mainly traders, merchants, and sometimes artisans. The Nagaram played an important role in urban administration. Economy. The Cholas promoted both inland and overseas trade and commerce. The Coromandel and Malabar coasts served as the centers of India's trade with Southeast Asia. To fix the government's share of land revenue, an elaborate land survey was carried out. Taxes were also collected from tolls on trade, professions, and from the plunder of neighboring territories. Plunder means the action of stealing from people or places, especially during war or fighting. Temples. The Chola rulers built many large temples which were the center of cultural life. Besides being spiritual centers, they also served as places for other activities such as ceremonial dances performed by the Devadasis. The temple was a miniature city or palace with living rooms for priests. The temples usually enjoyed revenue free grants and donations from the wealthy merchants. The style of temple architecture was known as Dravida as it was confined to South India. The building of a story upon a story above the chief deity room called Garbhagriha was the main feature of the Dravida style of temple building. Chola inscriptions. Our main sources of information on the Chola dynasty are the inscriptions of the period. The Tamil copper plate inscriptions serve not only as title deeds of land grants but also as records of the conquests and events. The copper plate inscriptions are actually long documents engraved or embossed on thin sheets of copper which are then punched and tied together. They record grants of land and bear the royal seal to indicate their authenticity. They also contain details about the land, wells, trees, canals, rivers, pastures, etc., types of taxes and fines, and all other rights enjoyed by the grantee. At times, they contain royal genealogies as well. Inscriptions on stone pillars and temple walls, such as the ones inside the Brihadeshwara temple at Thanjavur, are useful in reconstructing the history of the period. We get to know about local self government in the Chola Empire primarily from the from of the details provided in the Chola king Parantaka I's Uttara Meru temple inscriptions of 919 CE and 921 CE. These inscriptions describe the village assemblies in great detail. These inscriptions shed light on the socio-economic life of the medieval period. Some of these also showed the royal seal of the dynasty. Marks of masons are sometimes found on these inscriptions. The inscription we read here tell us about the conquest of King Rajaraja of the Chola dynasty and the gifts made to the temple. The systematic way of giving donations informs us about the organizational capabilities of the ruler. Names of officers like those who have collected revenue, managed the temple, aided and advised the king are also mentioned in the inscriptions. Land grants were also given to the Brahmins either individually or collectively. Language and literature. The Chola rulers patronized art and literature during the period of their reign. Popular saints called Nayanars and Alvars, who were devotees of Vishnu and Shiva, respectively flourished in Tamil region between the 6th and 9th centuries. The age of Kamban is considered the golden age of Tamil literature, and his Ramayana is considered a classic in Tamil literature. Spearheads of Turkish invasion, Ghaznavi and Ghori. Mahmud of Ghazni 998 to 1030 CE, also called Mahmud Ghaznavi, was a Turkish conqueror who established his empire in Ghazni, present-day Afghanistan. As part of his expansionist policy, he raided India 17 times between 1001 and 1027 CE at places like Punjab, Mathura, Multan and Thaneshwar. His most daring raids were at Kannauj in 1018 CE and Somnath in 1025 CE. He planned his attacks carefully and did not allow his enemies to combine against them. Ghazni did not wish to rule over India. He just plundered India and carried away wealth, artisans and learned men. He was closely associated with the rebirth of Iranian culture. He decorated the places, mosques and tombs in Ghazni. Many scholars recite at his court. Among them, Firdausi, the author of Shahmana, was the most famous. Mahmud's attacks were devastating in nature as they showed the weakness of the existing kingdoms and paved the way for future invasions. He died in 1030 CE at Ghazni. Muhammad Ghori, Muizzuddin Muhammad bin Sam, also known as Shihabuddin Muhammad Ghori, ascended the throne of Ghazni in 1173 CE. He conquered Multan and Uch en route to Delhi and the Gangetic Valley and made Punjab his base. Around this time, Prithviraj Chauhan ascended the throne of Ajmer, defeated the Chandelas and occupied Delhi. So two powerful rulers, Prithviraj Chauhan and Muhammad Ghori, both desiring control of the Gangetic Valley and Punjab, came into conflict with each other. They fought the two battles of the Rhine in 1191 CE and 1192 CE respectively. The first battle of the Rhine resulted in Prithviraj Chauhan's victory. However, in the second battle of the Rhine, the superior Turkish military and organizational abilities led to Muhammad Ghori's victory and his control over Delhi. Bihar, Bengal and the Ganga Yamuna Doab are under the control of Muhammad Ghori. After the battles of the Rhine, Muhammad Ghori returned to Ghazni, leaving the control of his Indian territory in the hands of his trusted slave Kutubuddin Aibak. That's it for today's class. Thank you.